was born in the northern California.
Yeah, my name is Pete Sweeney. I grew up in Larkspur in Marin County and was a runner in high school, a runner in college, and like a lot of other runners, I got injured a lot and took up cycling. And I think, Kurt, I think you're from St. Louis. So I lived in San Luis Obispo and rode for the San Luis Cycling Club back in the 80s. That's when I got started. So I'm been around long enough to have ridden with wool shorts, toe clips, Downtube shifters.
Nice.
None of that stuff is good, no matter what somebody tells you.
Yeah, I think I've told a story. I recently, last summer, I bought a bike that it's the same model I had that I raced in the 80s. And it's fun to go out on easy days, but I found myself on a downhill with a group not long ago, and it was a little nerve-wracking. So I'm grateful for the new technology and those downshifters. It all came back pretty quick, but yeah, no thanks. I'll take the electronic shifting.
Yeah. And I remember doing a race in the early 90s where you're coming down a hill, you know, 6 or 7%. So you're going pretty fast. You've got less than a K left in the race. Down the hill, a very hard left that you had to brake hard for, and then immediately up a hill. So, you know, you have to hit the brakes with your hands, and then you got to reach down to be downshifting, and you got to do both sides. So you got to take both hands off the bars to get off the big ring onto the little ring, shift up the cassette. It made it interesting.
It sure did. And also there's no hiding what you're doing, and as you are closing on that final sprint, because you're reaching way down to everyone sees what you're doing, so you're trying to be sneaky about it, but there's no hiding that move to start your sprint or whatever. So yeah. So what you said it was the injuries, but like how old were you when you actually got into racing, or what kind of jump started that whole?
Well, I'm trying to impress anybody that's looking with my youthful good looks, but I'm not that young. So I was, let's see, I when I did my first just plain bicycle race as opposed to a duathlon or whatever they call them now, biathlon. Yeah, I was already 32 years old.
Oh, wow. Oh, cool. So got it out.
I'd already done it. And I was basically, I worked with this guy and he said, you know, you got to get into cycling. And I said, yeah, you know, I don't have that kind of bike. I had a Schwinn Varsity that I weighed at the time, 42-pound bicycle.
Oh my God.
And even then, you know, a good racing bike was 23 pounds. So, you know, it was a tank. And he said, no, you got to get this. And he showed up at my house in San Luis Obispo one day. He said, here's your bike. You owe me $500. I said, okay. So, you know, I'll ride it. I was running 6 days a week and riding 1. And so I was pretty fit. I could climb. I couldn't descend, I couldn't sprint, I couldn't time trial, had a hard time following a wheel, but you know, you learn that stuff over time.
Yeah, very cool.
And then San Luis Obispo, great city, great town to live in. I went to Cal Poly down there and hung around for years. Hard to find work. I work in agriculture. I'm a wine grape consultant, a viticulturalist. And so I got a job in Sonoma County, moved up here. And my brother was already living here, another ex-runner. A couple other guys said, yeah, we want to do this bicycle thing. I said, great. And I'd already was experienced enough to know you really need to have a team if you're racing. So I said, so let's join a team. And I went to several of the local teams in Sonoma County at the time. And it was like, they wouldn't even give us the time of day. One team that will go unnamed, I went up and I said to the guy, and I said, you know, there's 5 of us. And we were all Cat 4s at the time. And he says, yeah, you can join the team, but we won't support you. And I thought to myself, won't support us. Yeah, we're not looking for money or something. And we know we're for us. And he goes, no, you don't understand. No matter what happens, whatever race we're in, we're never going to work with you guys. I was like, why do I want to be on this team?
Yeah.
So we said, well, we'll form our own team. And at the time it was the People's Republic of Bobator. Exactly what Bobator means is pretty controversial, but let's just say it's the world's most misunderstood beer.
Oh,
So we're a bunch of beer drinkers that happen to ride bikes. And so we started the Bobas, did it for 5 or 6 years. Most of us, we all moved up to Cat 3. A couple of us moved to 2. But, now we're getting late 30s, 40 years old. We're not in it for the money. We're not going to go pro. We're not riding the Tour de France. We're not making the Olympics. We're just having fun. And at the time, the main bike shop on College Avenue, where NorCal is now, that was Dave's Bike Sport, was actually a block down the street. Dave's NorCal Bike Sport. And Dave himself, a guy named Dave Walters, said, we got all these small 10 people or less cycling teams in Sonoma County. Let's have one good team. Let's all get together. So we said, all right, we'll join up. A bunch of guys, maybe 60, 70 people on the team, racers. And we said, well, what's the team? There'd been a variety of different names. Redwood, they were Redwood Cycling Team. There was Velo Project. There was City de Policiclista out of Petaluma, a couple other teams, and the Bobas. And we said, okay, so we will become the Redwood Empire Cycling Team, RECT or RECT.
okay.
We thought it was clever.
Yeah.
And we did that for 5 years, and a bunch of the Bobas were part of the governing board, president, vice president, etc. We helped run the show. We grew to about 100 people.
Wow.
We were getting about $10,000 a year 30 years ago from Kendall Jackson. And certainly when I was president of Redwood Empire, the fighting for that $10,000 was ridiculous. You got 100 members, that's $100 each.
Yeah.
Entry fees were about 20 back then, but if we pay everybody's entry fee, you get 5 races and the money's gone.
Right.
We tried to put the money into a 1-2 team. Then we tried to put it all into a women's team. I had a full-time job. I was married, had 2 kids. It's like, I'm not going to spend all my time chasing sponsorship, begging people for a couple of $1,000. We had an incident on a big group ride, 50, 60 people, where a couple guys were your basic entitled Cat 3, I'm the king of the world type guy. And one of the original Bobas, Dr. Brian Smith, said, we got to go back to the Bobas. We got to downsize, just be with our friends, a bunch of beer drinkers with a cycling problem. And so we restarted the Bobas, and we'd originally been the People's Republic of Bobator. And we said, we're not doing that anymore. We're not doing one man, one vote. It's Imperial Bobator. There's 3 guys make all the decisions. If you don't like it, fine. And we are deliberately accepting 0 sponsorship money because then we don't have to fight over it at all. And so, we've gone on for 30 some years.
Now, when was this that this was getting started, that you guys were exiting the RECT configuration?
2001.
Okay.
We left them.
Cool.
And we restarted the Bobas, and we basically all the guys are older.
Yeah.
We got a few guys that are younger, but we're almost all 55 or older, and necessarily slower and not as competitive. Everybody, you cycle long enough, you get a bad crash here and there, and you go, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, first the pandemic stopped bicycle racing. And then in 2021, I got hit by a kid's bicycle, not a kid on a bicycle, kid's bicycle. Came out of nowhere on Channel Drive, knocked me off my bike, broke my pelvis in
It
6
just came
places.
flying down a hill or something, or
He was coming from between parked cars, trucks, and he was about a 10-year-old boy. Somehow he saw me, he jumped off his bike, and it came at me like a guided
oh my gosh.
missile.
Yeah.
So I smashed the hell out of my pelvis.
Oh gosh.
I got a whole bunch of extra titanium now. And it was like, how much do I really want to go like back to the Tuesday night crits? I've probably did 15 to 20 Tuesday night crits for 20 years. Probably done 300-400 of them.
Yeah.
But I haven't done one since 2019.
Gotcha. I just a personal side note that the Bobas always have a special place for me because, I raced in the 80s and then got into other things for many years. But when I moved into this neighborhood in 2015, apparently there's at least one, I think there might be a couple Boba houses in this neighborhood. So I'd see these Bobas and it just always, got me excited to see this cycling team coming through the neighborhood. And I guess you guys would be meeting at different folks' houses here. And so, it's just always, it really helped me remember my connection to cycling. And so definitely have a warm place in my heart for the Bobas. So very cool.
Yeah, we got one guy lives at the corner of Leonard and Short. Kenny Lane, super prominent for years, but like Kenny is 68 now, so it's gotten a bit older. And around the corner on Little John, we got two other guys. They actually just happenstance live right next door to each other. So they live over on Little John. So yeah, we're in that neighborhood.
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah, we got quite. We could have our own team in this neighborhood because we got Curtis Stewart from Red Pelotons right up the street too. So, very cool stuff. Speaking of that, I wanted to ask you about the time trial. Last year, didn't the Bobas start that? There was a time trial out near Two Rock. I didn't ride it last year. I had some stuff going on, but I actually was lucky. I went out and watched and got to drive along, and man, that was a really cool event. Can you tell me about that?
Sure. Team time trialing is something I've personally always loved. You hate to do some kind of race where you're feeling good, you're busting your butt, and you just can't get rid of that wheel sucker, and he out sprints you, or 20 wheel suckers, and you go, But that's a sport. But team time trialing, all the work you're doing is for you and your guy. And so getting to the front and burying yourself and barely getting back on the back, to me, that's always been really enjoyable. So gosh, when was the first one? At least 20 years ago. We've held it in a variety of spots. It's basically, I put it on.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Totally without permits, no road closures, no entry fee. I try to dig up some prizes, but you're certainly not going to get rich doing it. We used to do 3 a year, spring, summer, fall. And then the pandemic just disrupted everything. And so we did the one last year. I'm hoping to do them again this year. And last year, the one I rode, we had some pretty strong Bobas. We put 4 of them on one team, 4 of us that were less strong. Well, actually, it was 3 of us. So Phil Heiman joined us.
Mm-hmm.
So Phil was on our team, and what a tragedy with Phil. He was always a great guy, and we used to tell him all the time, Phil, you were actually born a Boba. You just haven't got there yet.
Phil was such a great guy.
And 2018-19 So we used to, like 2010, say, just to pick a number, we'd have the Bobas that have anywhere from 8 to 12 guys racing Tuesday night crits or racing our time trials. Or I used to put on some pirate road races, kind of like Phil's Two Rock events. But by 16 and 17, we'd have like 3 guys. And Phil would have 3 guys with Cola Vita. So we were right at the point we were going to make Cola Boba. And just for Tuesday nights, we were just going to race so we could have about 6 guys. But pandemic comes, that all stops. And then Cola Vita, I think, kind of like the Bobas, kind of started to get older and fractionate. And guys went their own ways, kind of thing. I know they're still around, but they're not as big and active as they used to be either.
Yeah. Tell me more about Phil. I only met him, 2 years ago through the Red Pelotons, the TNTs. But yeah, tell me how'd you meet Phil? And obviously probably through cycling, I'm assuming. But yeah, tell me more about the history.
Yeah, through cycling and oh gosh. Actually, yeah, that's what it was. So Phil, and God, I remember Larry's last name in a minute. Phil was kind of riding independent. Cola Vita was just getting started. One time Cola Vita had a Continental Pro team, so they had some heavy hitters, and then they were trying to develop regional teams around the country, and so somehow it got started here. But Phil had a friend, God, I can't remember Larry's last name right now. Larry rode for the Olympic Club out of San Francisco, and they would make a combined group at our team time trials. And originally the team time trial course was meet and start at Helen Putnam Park, go Chileno Valley, come back on Tamales Petaluma Road, Spring Hill, and come back towards the finish. We stopped before you got back to Helen Putnam, but it was about a 20-mile team time trial, and Phil would do it. But then lots of the teams, like 40 or 50 people, would go to, I think it's called Los Guitares now, restaurant just off 101 in Rohnert Park. So I have everybody go, and you have a happy hour, and we'd sit down and eat, Tuesday night at 9 o'clock or whatever. And Phil was always there, and Larry and Blake Ridgway and a bunch of guys. So that's how I got to know Phil. I didn't do much in the way of training rides with Phil, not much at all. But we were trying to work that out. And then, of course, tragic event. So,
yeah.
And gosh, well, it was after the team time trial this past summer. I forget exactly when that was. But again, same old thing. We went out to dinner afterwards, and Phil ate dinner with us. And then, 2-3 weeks later, he's gone.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, well, I'm grateful that there's some people that are going to carry on his tradition with the 2 rocks. In fact, I just got that. I've been working on I help manage the Red Peloton website and their cycling calendar, and I just started last night, hoping to finish it today. That the 2 rock season, it's actually pretty extensive. They've got a lot of 2 rocks planned, so I'm happy to see that they're Jason Horn and also Curtis Stewart from who I'd mentioned earlier from Red Peloton. They're going to carry it on, so it's going to be a pretty active season out there.
Yeah, and I'm going to try to insert. I suppose so. My goal is to have 3 team time trials again: spring, summer,
great.
fall. And typically on Tuesday night. So I'll try to find a date that works for the Tuesday night crits, the 2 rock events. I'm thinking of going back to the Chileno Valley course. Pretty safe. The worst is the turn from Chileno Valley Road onto Petaluma Tamales Road. It's a right turn, but it can be a little dicey. I mean, I don't have the authority to close the road. but I want to try to do that again. Although from my personal point of view, that's a pretty hilly team time trial, and I don't climb like I used to.
Yeah.
Whereas
But
the
it's
Valley
beautiful out there,
Forge
though.
course is pretty flat. So
Right. So I'm curious also, so you have a great history here in racing in Sonoma County. What was a two-part question? What was the heyday and or your favorite time, and what could be learned from that time that we could, try to incorporate moving forward to improve upon the current scene?
that's a good question. How to improve? As far as I'm concerned, the heyday was basically, let's go with 1989 to the fall of Armstrong, 2010, or whenever he finally confessed. Because you had on the world scene, you had guys like Greg LeMond. So that's getting a lot of attention and helping build cycling in the U.S. And then as he's going out, Armstrong's coming in. And so and you have a lot of other solid Americans, racing at the very top level. And it just brought a lot of interest into the sport.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of, I don't know why, because I haven't done it in years, but there were a lot of, there were road races in Marin, there were crits in Marin, again in Sonoma County, Mendocino County. Heck, there was a crit in Lakeport. So, you can race locally quite a bit. And then there was a Tuesday night crits, Cripes in more or less that time frame. At the old corporate center course, you'd have Bobby Julich, Roberto Gaggioli, Scott Neidham, John Peters, Levi Leipheimer. I mean, you'd have heavy hitters out there.
Wow. Yeah.
You would ride your nose right off your face just to try to finish on the same lap with those guys. So I think a lot of it was twofold. Was the exposure of Armstrong's cheating. I take a very hard line on those guys. I never cheated, and I don't say, well, other guys did it. Yeah, to me, that's horse manure. You knew the rules. You broke them on purpose. But I think that really affected cycling, bicycle racing in the United States. And then the pandemic, of course, disrupted everybody's life in untold ways. So how to get it back? We like to refer to a group like the Red Peloton as, Johnny come latelys, a bunch of newcomers. But it seems like you guys have, I don't know, 100 members and a lot of enthusiasm.
Around 80 something right now, but yeah.
And so I think that's really good for the sport. The Bobas have been around, but we're not growing. We had people like Colavita and Two Rock Racing and Laurel Green's Early Bird Team, and a lot of people put on races or events, and of course Sonoma County Bike Coalition, things like that. I think we just sort of need to keep the foot on the gas pedal and keep the energy going, and not to rely on 70-year-old guys to do all the work anymore.
Right. Well, it's a great point that every person bringing their little bit makes all the difference. Phil doing the Two Rocks, starting the Two Rocks, it gets everybody out there. And once you get around an event like that, you're around other riders, the heart rates are up, and you're having fun, and you're improving. That gets everyone excited for the next one, and then you getting the time trial going again. So, and of course, all the energy Red Peloton's putting into building the TNTs. That this year they're going to have a separate women's race, which is going to be great. I try to work to get more women out there, and so I think everybody doing their little part, it can all add up for sure.
Yeah, for sure, and that's I think what we want. And to try, not exactly sure how to do it, but to try and get the average bicycle rider with the high-end racer a bit more. A lot of times there's that strong divide. I don't want to race, and a lot of racers end up with a very hard attitude that can make it a little difficult for newcomers to come in. And if guys could occasionally lighten up a little bit and just ride with these people. I haven't done the Thanksgiving Day ride in quite a few years, but that used to be a big thing in Sonoma County, and it was basically from Dave's Bike Sport on College Avenue to the guardrail on the geysers and back on Thanksgiving morning. And you'd have about 100 people, no permits or anything, just follow the rules of the road. And it was a casual conversation ride to the base of the hill, and then ride the hill as hard as you want, group up at the top, and some people be 20 minutes ahead. But you'd just be having a coffee break, so to speak, at the top, and come back down together, group up at the bottom, and ride back to town. And one of the last times I did it, I was probably a third of the way back, and I'm not even at the top, and guys are going down. And I talked to a bunch of guys at the top, and we went down, got there to Jimtown, and I said, hey, let's wait for the group and ride back. And they were like, no, we're going to hammer. I went, okay, but there's 365 days in a year when we've got a group out there like that. And
right.
It turned into sort of a semi-race. And I do remember what it's like to be in the top 10% and feeling great and pushing the pedals hard and going fast. And that's why you buy a license and you pin a number on. So, something like that, it seemed like there was a real schism. I don't know what's happened on that ride in the last several years because I haven't done it. Hopefully it still exists, and maybe it's building back up again. I just don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, but you make a fantastic point that I think there's a huge opportunity. There is an intimidation factor to
Right.
just the sport. It's intense looking. Everyone's flying, and you're close, and so it's already fairly intimidating. But there is that opportunity to create more events and rides where people can. You can encourage people who are newer to, hey, give it a try, and you can do this. It is intimidating, it's hard, but it is doable. And once you get to learn how to do it, it's really fun. And
right.
And that's one thing I love about the TNTs, that they have the mentor race. There's some real beginners out there. I've seen this one guy showing up in his work pants and work boots and some crazy helmet on, but kudos to him. He's getting out there. And I've talked to him afterwards, and it's just, he loved it. He had the best time, and that's fantastic. And I think encouraging people who are at that entry level to get in there and try it, it's only going to help all of us to get more people into the sport, regardless of their level. So great point for that, for people to reach down and bring someone else along. So yeah, great point. I was just, since you did race for so long, let's hear what are some of your favorite tips through the years to get that performance or work through that when you're just ready to cough up a lung. You're so tired. Give us some of your favorite performance tips from your years of racing.
Well, I learned a long time ago. I was former NC2A, actually All-American in track and field. And then when I dropped out of college for quite a few years. And when I went back at Cal Poly, somebody said, why don't you get on the cycling team? It's not an NC2A sport, so you have eligibility. So I'm in my early 30s and riding with these guys. And there was one guy, God dang, I'll remember his name in a minute. But he was a top At the time, Cat 1 was only the U.S. national team. And so Cat 2 was really, as far as guys went, he was a Cat 2. And he was very gracious, great teacher, everything about it. And he taught us a lot about teamwork and working with your team. And also his quote that I've had now for, God, almost 40 years, the wheel is life. In other words, don't lose that wheel. You don't necessarily have to pull through it. Don't kill yourself on the front, but stick on there. That and having teammates, those are the best things about racing. I mean, you don't always get that opportunity. You get in a breakaway, and I'm the kind of guy that was always wanting to be in a break because I'm not a great sprinter, never was. So I want to get in a breakaway, and then I want to go too hard to try to make the brake stick and then, run out of gas. So I learned, hey, wait a minute. Once you get a gap, and it depends on the course, et cetera, but to try to understand what you think is a workable gap and then just match what the other guys are doing. I mean, don't soft pedal it and just be a wheel sucker because it'll fall apart, but to stay in there and keep working. And sometimes you talk to the other guys. I was in a race last century, and 4 of us got away in a 70-mile road race, and there were some hills in it, so we got away. And the last 20 miles in the Sacramento Valley is pancake flat. One guy just kept attacking like a maniac, and we chased him down. He'd attack again. I said, look, you can keep attacking like that, and we're going to stop working with you. We're just going to sit on. And I said, and I got 2 guys that are chasing for my team, probably a minute plus down, and they're the 2 best sprinters in the field. So if you want to keep this nonsense up, I'm just going to sit on your wheel and do no work. We're going to get caught. I'm going to lead those guys out, and you won't even get top 3. Guy goes, well, all right. And we started working smoothly together, and we did not get caught. So, stuff like that.
Yeah. Great stuff. Well, so how'd you end up how'd that finish turn out then? How'd he do and how'd you do?
So it was 4 of us, as I said, and there's the 1K to go sign. And one guy just goes, I'm done. He just sits up.
Oh my gosh.
Great. Now there's 3 of us. One guy took off way too hard with about 800 meters to go. And the guy who had been doing the insane attacking earlier, he's on his wheel and I'm riding third. And the guy that attacked too hard too soon, he's doing all the work. We're sitting on him. The guy in second, his name is Keith. Keith comes around and he's going for it. He's sprinting like a mad dog. And I don't see any reason to go. I think I passed him with 50 meters left. I said, I'm just going to sit and sit and sit. There's no reason to go early. And so, I ended up winning that one.
Oh, good. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah. Typically in a small group on a hilly course back then, I had a good enough sprint. I didn't win a lot of races, but I won a handful of races. The Bobas always had a special prize. The old Tuesday night crits, if we would do the second race was supposed to be 3s and 4s and anybody over 35. Well, we were all over 35. So we would do the second one and then do the third one, which had guys like Gagioli and Leipheimer, et cetera. And you would get a special Boba prize if you could win both.
Oh, wow.
The second and the third one. So I won the second one a few times. I never won the third one. We had a couple of guys, Brian Smith and Kevin Zuko and Jim Forney. Yeah, they all managed to pull off the double, but not me.
What? Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just going to show you. This is an
Oh
older picture of the Bobas.
man, I love it. That's awesome. Very
I don't know
cool.
whether they're 20 some guys. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Nice.
probably around 2010 or so, that picture.
Okay. Super cool.
So
One other question. So what was your favorite race as far as your performance? I'm sure there's a lot of them, but what one, what's the one that really comes to mind about, oh, this was a race I really loved?
yeah, well, so back in my time, I was a pretty good climber, and so I'm not anymore. Geez, but it was the Whiskey Creek stage race at Mammoth Mountain, and so you'd have. I'm pretty sure 4s and 5s was 100-person field limit, and there was a 1-2 pro race and a 3s, and then there was a masters, and the field limit was 150 guys. So you had a bunch of guys, and I did the 35 plus 1, 2, 3 many years ago, 5 stages.
Wow.
Uphill prologue, about a 25-minute uphill prologue, which I could do well back then. You raced from, it was a Mammoth Mountain, so you raced from Bishop to Mammoth. So you gain 5,000 feet over the course of 50 some miles. So there's a couple of big climbs in that. And it was really cool to be able to do a 5-day stage race. I've never done one longer than that. Banging it out every day and finishing with a crit. One year I was doing the crit. So you had to make, I forget, maybe the top 75 to do the crit on the last day. And so I was sitting in second on GC. So I get to do the crit and ring the bell for preem. And I remember guys going supersonic for that preem. I'm like, I wanted to protect my overall position, so I wasn't really going to go for the preem, but I went, there's no way, these guys are so fast. And we had about 6 preems or something like that, and quite a few preems. And by the 5th and 6th one, I was starting to think about going for them because guys were getting tired.
Yeah.
And you're also at about 8,000 feet.
Oh,
so,
okay. Yeah.
The altitude played a role in that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was a great one. I did it as a 35 plus, and I did it as a 4, Cat 4, way back when I still lived in San Luis Obispo. And as a 4, I won $225 and a pair of pedals and a pair of sunglasses.
Wow.
Way in the last century. I mean, it was huge money.
Yeah.
Back then.
Yeah.
So that one was always great, and a variety of road races. The old Pope Valley road race, which they haven't had in a long time. I remember doing that one year. God, it's February. It was probably about 45 degrees and pouring rain. I'm pretty sure the 35s did 60 miles. Pouring rain the whole time. Frozen to death. But, you finish. And because I'm a Boba, I'm required by genetics to drink a cold beer on a 45-degree day when you've been out there for 3 hours in the pouring rain. And you still drink a cold beer. It's a great part of the world, Sonoma County, Napa, Mendo. I mean, there's a lot of, I'm pretty much a road rider. I got a mountain bike back in 1983, and my dirt skills suck. And I live right now from where I'm talking to you. Annandale Park is 1 minute from me. One of my high school cross country and track running teammates was a guy, you might have heard of a guy named Ned Overend, 1990 world mountain bike champion.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So he can ride in the dirt. I can't. But road riding in this part of the world is fantastic. I love it. I don't climb like I used to. I don't look forward to doing something like Cavedale or Pine Flat. And the very, very end of Pine Flat, where it's what, 20% or something. I haven't been up there in several years because it's too hard.
Yeah, I still need to try that. I've done Pine Flat a number of times, but I need to do that final harder section. I haven't tried it yet. I heard it's pretty
We did
brutal.
a pirate race there years ago, and got to that real steep part. And I said, God, I'm just dying. I can't do it. So I'm going to get off. And I just passed a guy. I'm going to get off the bike and start walking it.
Oh, wow.
I'm walking the bike. And I do for about 50 or 60 of the steepest yards. And then I get back on and I pedal to the finish. And the guy I had passed comes up to me at the finish. He said, oh, you passed me and I didn't want you to pass me. And then we got to the steep part and you were walking. And he said, oh, I'm going to beat you because you're walking. He goes, you were pulling away from me walking.
Oh, my gosh. I got to check that section out now. That sounds terrifying.
I still like riding. I love group rides. I like going out with the guys and doing all that, and want everybody that has a chance. But if you live in the county, great, keep it up. If you're outside the county or the area, please come and check it out because it's a great place to ride your bicycle.
It really is. I feel lucky every time I'm out there. Had great riding growing up in Missouri and did quite a bit of riding in Colorado over the years. But yeah, it's a fantastic place. We're really fortunate. And yeah, let's just all keep spreading the word and get more people out there enjoying the sport for sure.
Yeah. Oh, and wait, is it somewhere in there?
Oh yeah. Oh, awesome. Very cool. Yeah. And just one, unless you had anything else, I just want to say, yeah, thanks to the Bobas. You guys have been an inspiration all these years. Every time I see you guys going through the neighborhood, I thought it always kept that in the back of my mind. Miss my riding, and I'm so happy I'm back to it. So thanks to the Bobas. Well, big respect.
And we do make exceptions and allow members of the Red Peloton to ride with us from time to time. So you'd be more than welcome to show up. Not a problem at all.
Yeah, this life drifts like waves to know the secret shores. Yeah, this life drifts like waves